Oh my god. Hi, hello, welcome to another Rev View, the only show online where this was a series before this video. Today I want to talk about an album that has captured my fascination over the last couple months, and one that I am pretty sad that I missed when it initially came out. That's right, we're talking about Volcanic Bird Enemy and the Voice Concern. Jesus. The latest album by rapper, producer, singer, songwriter, and ring designer, Lil Ugly Mane. This album came out on October 12, 2021, and I didn't listen to it until January of this year. Which, sucks, because it definitely would have made my top of 2021 list. Probably around the nurture mark if you're curious. But enough of my worries, and let's worry about the album. While before this project, Lil Ugly Mane has had an incredibly prolific career as a rapper and producer, Volcanic Bird Enemy forgoes all of that and delves deep into the mystical realm of hypnagogic pop. Never heard of? Pop? Well, it's pretty simple to explain, really. It's like, so, there's like it's like lo-fi. It's kind of like hypnagogic pop is a sound defined by its use of lo-fi recording and vintage samples to evoke a sense of nostalgia in a listener. It's really similar to vaporwave, and in fact the two often overlap. But while vaporwave specifically tries to capture the aesthetics of old internet, that kind of stuff, hypnagogic pop is more general. It extends to cartoons, radio tunes, cassettes, vinyls, etc., etc., etc. Think Jack Stauber's High-Low. That's the biggest example of the sound that I can think of, or at least think of and feel good about myself for. But enough about the background of this album. Let's get into the meat. Let's talk about... I mean... Alright, let me think of like a concise, single set, like little hook to draw you in. It's like Ariel Pink if he was depressed. And also not racist. Actually, I don't want to talk about this. I'm in love with the sound of this project. It is obviously incredibly nostalgic and out there, but it's also beautiful in a very particular way. For example, the opening instrumental track, Volcanic Bird Enemy, is an incredible song that manages to be surprisingly emotional with the swelling strings compounded with the simple piano tune. It is a perfect tone setter to the rest of the project, and shifts especially well into the next song with iron and bleach and accents. And this song is another standout track for me, the cheery instrumental contrasting perfectly with the depressing lyricism. Actually, now's a pretty great time to bring that up. The lyrics on this album are probably my favorite thing about it next to the production. They paint such a beautiful but heartbreaking picture of depression and how it can consume a person. There are a lot of lyrical highlights. Here are some from a bunch of different songs, but what I would say the highlights are Human Fly, Styrofoam, Discard, Into a Life, Cursor, and Broken Ladder. All these in their own way carry such emotional weight that it's like they put you in the same kind of tired, weary state Lil Ugly Mane was in when he wrote them. And then of course those lyrics being presented on top of the psychedelic, sleepy, and nostalgic instrumentals, it's pretty effective, all things considered. There are also a good amount of really catchy verses and choruses on this thing, a lot more than I expected at least. The refrains on Cold in Here are as catchy as they are subdued and, well, chilling. And the next track, Styrofoam, is pretty much one big jingle. It worms itself into your brain with the jaunty sampled instrumental and the sing-song chorus, and then hits you once again with the incredibly depressing subject matter. Discard is probably in the top 5 of my favorite songs off the album. It's just so catchy and easy to listen to, while also being one of the more palatable songs lyric-wise. That's not to say it's not emotionally potent, it's just more out in the open with its subject. It's less abstract. And while it's certainly not wrong to approach subjects such as depression, loneliness, and rejection in a poetic manner, having a more open song is a very welcome change of pace, especially at this point in the album. Also, I just love the beat, man. It's so much fun. There are also a few cuts off this album that lean more towards lo-fi rock than anything else, Headboard and Porcelain Slightly being the most noteworthy examples to me. And once again, both are amazingly produced. That can pretty much be said for any song on this album, with the heavy undertones of the whole album finally surfacing into some amazing guitar-heavy tracks. I love it. it. Into a Life is at the moment my favorite track. It's such a simple story of loss and how we can retrospectively look back on a relationship and notice every single little thing we screwed up. It's a decidedly understated song with more minimal production in comparison to the rest of the project, but I think that really works to put the vocals front and center and make you listen to the story being told. Moments off the song, like I Was Condescending Every Time You Tried to End It, Crisis Is Left Unattended, Carry On, are just so packed, so full of understated sorrow and regret. It's a pretty fantastic track. Cursor, likewise, is another fantastic song. It's about the complexities of a relationship, the mixed emotions of hate and love that you can hold for someone, and then how they usually contradict each other. It is admittedly a very odd track, being presented in a weird folky manner with a kind of country inflection a little bit. It's odd. It's odd for sure, but I think I kind of love it. But once again, the most noteworthy thing about this song is the writing. It's fantastic. It constantly switches from feelings of love with verses like "You're all that's on my mind, I just want to share a smile and gauge your observations," to verses of pure spite, like on the chorus, which states, "I want it worse for you today. I want it bad for you today. I set a curse for you today." And so it's a little funny. It can be funny at points, but I think the emotions on display on this song are just so... they're just great. It's pretty great. And with that, the album does kind of wind down. There's the track Bold Feudal Flavor, which is honestly probably my least favorite out of all the songs on this album. I think it really kills the strong pace that the last few tracks have going. The singing is pretty off, and it just overall feels maybe even too cartoony, even for how cartoony the production and vocals have been on the album. The last two tracks are Broken Ladder and Porcelain Slightly, which I think pick up the pace of the album pretty well. These are both songs that lean more to the lo-fi side of the record, and both are pretty fantastic. Broken Ladder in particular is a great song, with comparisons between Life and Going to Hell. Yeah, it's a lot to chew on. It's definitely a depressing track. And Porcelain Slightly doesn't really close out the album with any more hope or closure than we started out with. I mean, arguably, there's less of that, but I still find it a pretty heavy, beautiful, and creative note to end the album off on. If the opening track was a great tone setter to the entire project, Porcelain Slightly is a perfect summary of the emotional and mental state Lil Ugly Mane was in when he wrote and produced it. And that's pretty much the album. I didn't mention every song, but trust me, other songs like VPN, Stock Car, and Benadryl Submarine are still the highlights. So you must be thinking, man, Rev, you love this album, like really love it. Like you've only said like one or two bad things about it the whole time. You must really love it. And, well, yeah, no, actually, I don't want to pretend I don't love this album, because I do. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. But that's not to say it doesn't have its flaws. For example, and this is probably my biggest complaint, there are a few tracks that, while not necessarily bad in themselves, they really kill the momentum of the project. These are mostly the instrumental tracks, as every one of them, except for the opener, goes on just a little bit too long, with just a little too much lack of development. And like I said, it's not even like these songs are bad, they just are doing too much with too little, and it really slows the pace of this already hour-long album. Another issue I have is that some tracks with prominent samples feel like they're stretching the samples way beyond what they are actually capable of musically. For example, with Benadryl Submarine, that's probably the biggest culprit to me. I like that song, I really do, but the guitar sample being used, it just feels like it's not meant for the song. It's difficult to explain, but just feels off to me. Along with this, on a few tracks, Lil Ugly Mane's vocals are just too flat, too emotionless. Like on Clapping Seal, I love the chorus, but once it does the kind of switch up in the midsection, I zone out. I'm not really a big fan of it at all. Bold Futile Flavor also, once again, probably has the most annoying vocals on the whole project. It irks me, especially with the backing vocals on parts of it. It's annoying. I don't like it. And that's pretty much it as far as major issues with the album goes. I mean, there are still little nitpicks I can have here or there, but they really don't matter. I think it's a really solid project. I think it's a really good project. But does that mean that you should? Yeah. Granted, if this would be your first foray into the world of experimental indie music, I probably wouldn't give it a go. It is an incredibly dense, emotionally draining, and out there album, and I think if it's your first of this style, you wouldn't be into it. Besides that though, it's a pretty great album that I'd recommend to anyone with a good appreciation for some of the more lo-fi and depressing sides of pop and rock. It's good, it's really good.
I wonder where my grandmother is.
That's it. That's pretty much all I have to say. Here are my favorite tracks, if that interests you. Here's my least favorite. And yeah, go check this out if you want, and I'll see you with the next review. I'm still working on the outro. That's not gonna stick. It was kind of weak. See ya. Also, hi. It's editing Rev. I just got done animating everything and editing this, and I just want to say, at the end of most of these kinds of videos, I am thinking of maybe doing a small cover of one of the songs, not because I think I'm particularly good at singing or producing, because I don't, but I'm just doing it for fun. I think it's a nice little way to pay homage to whatever album I'm covering, and that's going to start now. Who knows if this will stick around? I don't, but hey, it might be fun, so here you go. You wear this madness like a uniform. I wish that you'd ignore it. I was condescending every time you tried to end it. Crisis is left unattended. Carry on.